Welcome back to the VSO Gun Channel. It's great to be here as always, and today we're going to be breaking down the insane assassination of the CEO of United Healthcare on the streets of New York City. You know, that bastion of safety out there with all those really strong gun control laws. You know, it's working out great for those people, right? Anyway, we're going to be taking a look at some of the elements from the footage from the street view of that assassination. And I find this absolutely fascinating because, I mean, it's clear to everyone that this was just straight up a brazen hit. The dude was not from there. He was there for a conference. He was a high-profile target that was intercepted on the way to that conference by a gunman. The assassin used a suppressed weapon, and we are going to talk about some of the elements related to that. And, you know, what's amazing to me is I first saw this video and I was like, wow, that's really bad. And then I went over to my parents' house last night for dinner with them, and they watched the news in that household. And I have to say that absolutely everything that came out of every pundit's mouth, I even made them change the channel a couple times just to see, absolutely everything that I heard on the news last night was objectively wrong about this. And that was amazing to me. Now, if you're new here, why should you listen to this guy? Well, my name's Kurt Hallstrom. I have run the VSO Gun Channel for over a decade now, and I've been working in the gun industry for over a decade. I have extensive experience with firearms of all types, including handguns, shotguns, rifles, machine guns, some shoulder-fired things. Okay, you know what? That isn't even good enough. When I was in high school, I built a cannon that displaces its own carriage. It was my science fair project. I go way back. Suppressors as well. I've tested over 100 designs of suppressors in my career. And I also have had the opportunity to attend extensive training in my career from various outlets across the training circuit. So there is a lot of things that can be gleaned. There are a lot of things that can be gleaned from this video that we have gotten, that there are a lot of people out there that are just getting wrong. And we're going to do that after we hear a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's video is brought to you by Medical Gear Outfitters. They're my go-to source for all things medical. It doesn't matter whether you need like a bump and bruises kit or if you need legit medical gear like tourniquets, chest seals, things like that. They even have several kits that are organized depending on concerns. Like if you're worried about car accidents or something like that, they have one that is set up specifically for the types of injuries that you might be concerned about with a car accident. They also even have one that is now packaged into a small Pelican case for those of you who are worried about disasters like rising floodwaters and things like that. Check them out at Medical Gear Outfitters, and they offer VSO subscribers a discount. You can find all that information over the affiliates page, and special thanks to Medical Gear Outfitters for making today's video possible. Thank you for sticking through the sponsor slot, and your question is, all right, man, you're the gun dude. What kind of gun did you use? Well, there's a couple pieces of nuance that we have to get through first. We have to remember that we are working with security footage, and that security footage appears to be filmed with a potato that is so old that it has started to take over the cabinet underneath of your sink. Of that potato footage, somebody then took a phone and recorded that footage on the screen and uploaded that to the internet. I then took a recording of that. So there's some serious degradation in the footage that we're working with. I will be taking some screenshots from that to make sure that we stay in community guidelines. But if you want to see the unedited footage, I will have it uploaded to my X account. And yes, I am aware that I need to charge my phone. Now, the assumption that we must make in what I'm about to say is that this is a normal statured human being and that this is not some giant that has enormous hands that would blow everything out of proportion and make it look wrong, right? Okay, this dude is using some kind of compact or subcompact semi-automatic handgun. We can tell that by the way the hand covers the gun relative to what's showing on the gun, plus where it connects to the suppressor and all that sort of stuff. I would say likely a 9mm handgun. There is some conjecture out there that this could be a 22 due to its functionality problems. We'll get to those here in a second. I do not believe that that is the case based on the amount of smoke that comes out of the gun when it malfunctions. A 22, even with a suppressor on it and the dirtiest ammo out there, will not produce that much smoke. This has to be some kind of center fire cartridge. My guess would be a compact 9mm handgun. That said, the suppressor. I believe that this is some kind of homemade suppressor. And the reason I believe that is due to its proportions relative to the gun. It looks excessively long to me relative to all of the cans that I have. Now, there are 9mm cans made on the market that are of this size, but they are not built for pistols. They are built for what we call submachine guns. They are larger guns that do not have a reciprocating action like this pistol has. And what you are seeing here is a can that is too big and heavy for the gun that it is on, and is causing the weapon to malfunction. This happens almost always with Browning style actions where the breech block must move out of the way and drop out of the way for the slide to reciprocate and load the next cartridge. This is typically accomplished with a device called a linear inertial decoupler, or a lid, sometimes also called a booster. And I will have an image of this for you from one of my devices. What this does is it basically decouples the mass that's in the name of the can from the barrel as it goes backwards slightly to move out of the way and drop out of the way so the slide can move. I believe that this is a homemade silencer because it probably does not have one of those. They are relatively intricate to manufacture, and I would guess that whoever did this probably did not have the expertise to manufacture that thing. Now, again, we are working with exceptionally grainy video. It is entirely possible with higher resolution video, we would be able to determine that is a factory produced firearm suppressor that's available on the open market in many locales throughout the United States through the National Firearms Act registration process. I think that it would be exceptionally stupid to use a device like that, but criminals aren't always the brightest people in the world. However, there is one other indicator to me that this is a homemade suppressor, besides the dimensional problems, the functionality problems that we've already addressed, and that is the accuracy. The first shot, and I can't show you this on YouTube for obvious reasons, the first shot strikes the subject in the left calf at a distance of approximately 15 feet. That is horrific accuracy. A person who has never picked up a handgun before in their entire life would be able to achieve better accuracy than that. And that is indicative to me that there is some kind of alignment problem with this device on the end of that firearm. It's called a baffle strike. And when a projectile that is traversing a can hits one of the internal structures of that can or gets really close to it, it will create a really bad accuracy problem that is very inconsistent, and we call that point of impact shift. It can be anywhere from a couple inches at that distance to a couple feet at that distance, depending on how bad it is. And this tells me that it's really bad and that this is some kind of home improvement store special. Okay, so that brings us up to, was this person a professional? Well, there was a certain level of sophistication involved because, there was an intelligence gathering period. You had to know the person's travel patterns, when they were going to be, how to lay the ambush and all that sort of stuff, right? There is some credence to that. However, you also have the people that are like, well, if he was a professional, he would have used a revolver because shell casings. And then the other person's like, well, look how professional he was or how proficient he was with the firearm and all that stuff. He must be a trained professional. And I would say that all of this is wrong, just dead wrong. Because let's start with the revolver thing, for instance. If you're a professional, you would not care about shell casings because you would know that all the parts of the firearm that produce markings that are traceable on a shell casing are all parts that are after factory in nature, and you would be able to acquire those, and you would need to acquire those to set up any factory weapon to be able to accept a suppressor. And so therefore you could take those parts off, melt them into a puddle somewhere, put the original factory stuff on there, and it would never trace on any of the markings on the shell casing. They would never be consistent with the forensics of the shell casings. So That's bullshit. The second thing, when it comes to, well, look how proficient he was with this firearm. This dude was an absolute chode with that gun. He had no idea what he was doing. He has fired the gun previously. And you can look at this in a couple different things. First off, again, I can't show you much of this video, but I can show you some screenshots. He does what we call fishing the firearm, which means he's like casting a fishing rod. That is not indicative of somebody who shoots on a regular basis. He would not present the firearm like that, like this, right? Like some weird, Hollywood person who has never, fired a firearm outside of, a couple minutes with the prop gun before the camera starts rolling. He also clears malfunctions like an absolute noob. He rotates the gun the wrong direction when it comes to clearing the casings out of the gun. You would never rotate the gun like this to clear a malfunction because that opens the ejection port in the wrong direction for gravity. So when you work the gun, the stuff doesn't fall out. It goes up in the air and can land right back where it was. And you can also see him striking the backstrap of the gun, trying to get it to go into battery because there's obviously something wrong with the configuration of the gun relative to the suppressor. And again, I can't show you any of this, but you can also see the way that he approaches the deceased after the action is not indicative of somebody who has been trained in tactical movement or anything like that. He is kind of just moseying on up there afterwards. I would say that this person had fired the weapon prior to this happening and knew that the gun was not going to cycle. Familiarity does not mean proficiency, and it does not necessarily indicate training. And I would say all the other factors that we have shown here are conclusive that this person was not a professional. I will say that he likely had help, which brings me to motive. I think this guy was probably paid off to do something as a fall guy, right? They say that they also have maybe the guy's cell phone. If that turns out to be inconclusive, that it's not actually the dude's cell phone, then I would maybe be a little bit more on the side of maybe this dude was a professional, because you would never leave your device. You would not have any devices on you that have GPS in them while you were doing this, obviously, unless you were intentionally going to drop it to lead in a different direction, right? So I would say that this is a dude that was probably paid off by somebody who's probably hacked off about something that United Healthcare is doing. So I have many friends and family that are in the healthcare field. So I just straight up asked them, because there's a lot of vitriol about United Healthcare online right now. And I'm like, well, how bad is United Healthcare actually? And all of them, particularly the doctors, told me, yeah, they're basically the worst of the worst. Right. So I'm not trying to condone anything like this whatsoever. This is horrible. And this is not the answer to anything. In fact, I would say this dude probably had nothing to do with any of the, standard floor level decisions that are made on individual policy decisions or anything like that. I would say that somebody was probably hacked off about something, hired this dude to do something, and it was likely to send a message of one kind or another. Or it's false flag. If you are versed in these sort of things, let me know if there's something that I missed, because, I'm not perfect, but I've scrutinized this for hours at this point in time. I think that I got a pretty good handle on at least the weapons side of things, what was going on. And I'm interested to see some higher resolution stuff, because that will give us more information. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. What say you in the comment section down below, and hopefully we'll see you on another video here at the VSO Gun Channel.